decided that, composers decided they wanted to use the major scale because that is a very pleasing sonority that sounds good to us, okay? And so this thing is called a major triad. Okay? And we can talk about, remember the interval is basically the space between two notes, any two notes, okay? So we actually have three intervals in this chord, right? It's the interval between the lowest two notes, the highest two notes, and then between the top and bottom note. There's three different intervals, okay? The interval between the lowest two notes is the easiest to analyze. It is just a, what? Well, we don't have it written anymore. It's just the 1 in 3 of the major scale, right? So all the major intervals come from notes in the major scale. So what is this called? A major third? Yeah, good. Okay. So now this one is a little trickier to understand because we haven't started creating intervals that aren't from C yet. Okay? But the way we can understand this right now, okay? So here's the major third. Okay, and here's our last note of that triad, right? Okay. So can you tell me how many whole steps are in between this major third? 2 whole steps, right? Here's the 1, and then, okay? So that's a major third. And we said that the minor third is just a half step below. It's a half step smaller, okay? So this is basically 1.5 steps. 1.5 whole steps. Oh, this is confusing. Or a whole step plus a half step. Okay? So let's now work out what this interval is between the middle note and the upper note, the E and the G. Okay? So can you construct, can you see that this is a half step and then this is a whole step? Okay? So this distance is actually the same as a minor third starting from C. Okay, it's a whole plus a half step. Okay, it's easier to see half plus whole step. Okay, so would you agree that this is a minor third? Would you accept that that's a minor third spacing? Okay. So guess what? A major triad is comprised of 2 intervals stacked on top of each other, which is a major third and then a minor third. Okay? Alright, so now let's create a major triad. Well, let's start from our second most important note, the G. Okay? So now we know that the major triad we can construct from creating a major third above that and then a minor third. Okay? So we said a major third is how many whole steps?
2.
Okay, so what is 2 whole steps above G? Look at the keyboard. Okay, so there's your major third above. Okay, and then we need to construct a minor third above the B, which is a half step plus a whole step. Okay? Wow, okay. We didn't even need to go to the black notes yet. Okay? So that's a major triad. That's a G, basically a G major triad. Okay? And if you work it out on F, it also turns out that if you create a major triad, F major triad, you also don't need to use any accidentals, and you're still basically using the notes of C major. Okay? Wow, so here's C major, G major, F major. All of these are major triads, and they happen to be on 1, 5, and 4. The roots, what we call the root, is on 1, 5, and 4. And those are our most 3 important notes of tonality, remember? Okay, this is why we decided in the Renaissance or Baroque to go to the major scale. Because all of the 3 important notes form these pleasing sonorities, major triad sonorities, on the 3 most important notes of the scale. Yeah, okay? So can you tell me what these scale degrees are for the G? So G is what? Numbers. 5. So you have to skip 1. 7, and then loop back. Well, 7, 8. Well, which is 1, and then 2. Okay, and then this is
4,
or yeah, or 1. Yeah. Okay, so just so you're getting used to these. Yeah, so there also happens to be, okay, so let's choose a different starting note to create a triad. Okay, so if we use the notes of C major still, no accidentals, it will come up with, okay, and this is D. Okay, I'm not gonna write it yet, but D, okay? So if we go a couple notes above D, okay, what is this interval? Just count how many. It's a minor third because it's a whole step plus half step. Okay. And then F to A is what? Major third. Right? 2 whole steps. Okay. So this is backwards, isn't it? This is not the same as a major triad. Okay? The lowest interval is a minor third instead of a major third. Okay, so this actually creates a different kind of triad called the minor triad. And that's built up of a stack of a minor third with a major third above it. Okay? You notice the type of triad comes from the type of the lowest interval. Yeah. Okay? So major triads have the bottom most interval called as a major third, and the minor triads have a minor third at the bottom. Okay? So now, very quickly, the last thing is that we don't always have to have the root. We use that word, root. I should just label all of these, 3rd and then 5th. I'm sorry, it's such a mess now. Yeah, root, 3rd, and 5th, okay? We don't always need the root to be on the bottom. We can flip the triad so that the 3rd is on the bottom. Okay, so now this is the root, 3rd and 5th. Okay. Or we can even flip it one more time so that the 5th is on the bottom. Okay, so it's like playing with 3 different colored blocks and you're like reordering them. Okay, but these are called inversions. Okay, and this is first inversion with the 3rd on the bottom, and then if the 5th is on the bottom, it's called second inversion. Yep. So on your packet, I think I have it here. I show you triads basically on most of the notes of the major scale, starting from most of the notes of the major scale. Okay, and remember the most important notes 1, 4, 5. This is page 6. Okay, they form major triads, and then 2, 3, 6, if you form triads using the notes of the major scale, starting on 2, 3, 6, they form minor triads. Yeah. And then there's one more that's missing actually. We've got 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. We're missing 7. Yeah. 7 forms a very special thing called a diminished triad, but that's too advanced for now. It's a very dissonant triad that needs resolution. But yeah, we haven't talked about functionality of triads yet. But yeah, and I talk about inversions there. Okay, so there's a hymn where you're basically going on a treasure hunt for triads and like intervals. So I'll give you the answers next week. There are many, many, many answers because there's like, you know, so many intervals everywhere between different voices or whatever. Okay, but try and go on a treasure hunt. It's in C major, so that's kind of helpful. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. So that's it today. We kind of had a crash course through. So these are basically tools you can use to. And yeah, I wish we had done more singing with triads, but yeah, just do, mi, so is a very important structure that you can remember orally. Yeah. And then the interval songs is another very useful tool. So we've been living in the world of tonality, major scales. We didn't talk about minor scales, but that's a different, it's slightly similar but different, yeah.
It's during Lent.
Huh?
During Lent, the minor.
Yeah, minor, yeah. Okay. But next week we're going to go further back in time before tonality took hold of Western music. So anything before 1600 was what we call modal. That's pre-tonal, modal, yeah. And we will talk about chant and how that relates to modality. And
medieval times.
yeah, medieval Renaissance was all modal. Yeah, even Greek like ancient Jewish music would have been modal. Roman music, yeah. So, yeah. All right. Thanks.